For decades, Saddam Hussein ruled from opulent, sprawling palaces. But in December 2003, American forces found him hiding in a claustrophobic, dirt-walled hole underground. A regime that possessed total control over millions of lives dissolved into nothing almost overnight. To understand how a state apparatus this formidable shattered so quickly, we have to look at how it was built in the first place, by tracing the violent, highly methodical rise of the Ba'ath Party. The story starts in the 1950s. Long before the palaces, Saddam Hussein was born into extreme poverty in Al-Awja, a small village near Tikrit. His father died before he was born, and his early childhood was defined by severe hardship. He was eventually raised by his uncle, Khairallah Tolfa. Tolfa was a fervent, militant Arab nationalist, and he instilled a deep, aggressive political ideology in his nephew from a young age. In 1957, a 20-year-old Saddam found his vehicle for this ideology. He joined the Ba'ath Party. But at the time, the Ba'ath Party held no real state power. As this image of early street protests shows, they were merely a fringe socialist and nationalist faction, relying heavily on public agitation. This marginalized, radical environment served as the perfect incubator for a young man seeking absolute control. From 1959 to 1968, the Ba'ath Party didn't grow by winning public consensus. They grew by physically eliminating their political roadblocks. This strategy peaked in 1959, when Saddam participated in a botched assassination plot against Iraq's military ruler, Abdul Karim Qasim. Following the failed attempt, Saddam fled the country, first to Syria, then to Egypt. Rather than ending his career, this exile cemented his internal reputation as a ruthless operator, willing to shed blood for the party. The violence paid off. In 1968, a state coup handed the Ba'ath Party total control of the Iraqi government. Over the next decade, Saddam meticulously outmaneuvered his internal rivals. By 1979, he had cleared the board entirely and secured the presidency for himself. None of this growth was organic. The party had executed a highly calculated institutional takeover, built entirely on the systematic removal of threats. Once in absolute control, the regime locked down civilian life using a strategy known as the Duruki Tasfir, a two-sided picture, the carrot and the stick. The first pillar relied on rapid modernization. The state bought public loyalty and projected international stability by aggressively funding civilian infrastructure. As seen in this era, the government invested heavily in public schools and actively promoted women's education, bringing a modern veneer to the major cities. This chart illustrates how that split reality functioned. On one side, rising infrastructure, but on the dark side, a vast hidden state security network, where any whisper of political dissent was met with immediate lethal force. The consequences of this security apparatus were devastating. During the Anfal campaign and the Al-Awja attacks in the 1980s, the state unleashed chemical weapons against its own Kurdish population in northern Iraq. To justify this slaughter, Saddam weaponized religious propaganda. The state officially tagged political opponents and Kurdish civilians as kafir, infidels and traitors, making their eradication a matter of state survival. This was the engine of Ba'athist expansion, a synthetic ecosystem where citizens were forced into total compliance, caught between the comforts of modern life and the paralyzing, omnipresent threat of death. This rigid structure held for decades, until the United States invaded in 2003, stress-testing the Ba'ath Party's 40-year grip on power. The entire apparatus shattered almost immediately. Saddam was forced out of his opulent palaces, proving that loyalty extracted through terror evaporates the second the enforcer is threatened. After months in hiding, the former dictator was captured. He spent his final years as a prisoner, facing a global spectacle of a trial. The legal proceedings ended on December 30th, 2006. On the morning of Eid al-Adha, he was executed by hanging. He left behind a fractured legacy. Some viewed him as the only force keeping Iraq intact, while most remember him as a monstrous tyrant. The Ba'ath Party amassed massive power, but because its foundation relied entirely on a brittle combination of forced modernization and absolute terror, it was structurally doomed to hollow itself out and ultimately collapse.